Before I start this video, I'd like to give a disclaimer that I'm going to relate to you a health issue that I've had, and I am not a health professional, and in no way am I advocating that you do what I did or that I have some kind of cure that's for you. This is just a relation of my story and what happened to me, and should be used for educational purposes only. Do not try this at home or use what I did. And there you have it. Here we go. All right, I want to talk about a gallbladder attack and fix. I think this happened over a week ago. It may have been a little more than that. I'm not sure exactly, but I've been waiting to see how I feel and to really process it. What happened was, I think it was the end of the week, and I had been having a lot of pressure in my gallbladder and been eating a lot less animal products and a lot less fat over the course of a week or two, because I had been eating a lot of fat, natural fat, mostly raw, and that's important to the rest of the story. And I had been eating a lot more starches and things like that instead of the high fat stuff. And so this day came around that this happened on, and I don't think I ate anything big for breakfast. I did have something small, I remember, but I don't remember what it was. It was mid-morning, maybe, something like that. And then later in the afternoon, maybe like early evening, maybe about 5 o'clock, something like that, I had this piece of fish. It was a fatty black cod or sable fish, and it had been in my fridge for a long time and was getting high and pretty stinky. So I ate that, and a couple hours later I noticed that I had some pain in my urethra, and I felt like I needed to go to the bathroom and wasn't really peeing much out. And then I started to feel a pain and kind of like, how do I put it, a pulsation or a pain, and it was more like a sharp pain in my gallbladder area, meaning right here, right around in here, which is exactly where it is at the end of the liver. And I know, or I'm fairly certain, that it's the gallbladder, because this is the same place that I used to feel pain and pressure all the time since I was young. This is not something new since I started eating like this. This is something that I've had all my life. Whenever I eat a lot of food, especially, fatty foods and protein. So this is the first time I started feeling this high amount of pain. And at first I was thinking, well, maybe it was the old fish, and I don't think that was the problem. I think it was the fat. And later on, I realized that I had drank, about a couple hours before that, I had drank a glass of water with a whole lemon juiced and a whole lime juice, so a whole lot of citrus. And I didn't know that at the time. So I'm having this pain and pressure. I drank a lot of water to try to dilute things, whatever was going on, and I felt like I should drink water. So it kept getting worse, and I ended up not being able to be comfortable sitting, standing, laying down, just this pain in my side and sort of like nauseous. And that went on for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, maybe like more like 45 minutes to an hour. And then I felt like going to the bathroom and throwing up. So I threw up all this water that I had drank. I didn't throw up any food, so the fish was through me. It wasn't the fish that made me throw up, I don't think, because the fish would have came up when the fish went in. So I was kind of perplexed at why my gallbladder reacted so badly to this and why this was happening. And I definitely at that time was praying about it and asking Jesus for an answer and a healing from it. And after I threw up, I felt fine. Everything calmed down in my body, and I shortly after that went to bed. And I slept really, really great that night. And I woke up feeling awesome, feeling really good, better than normal. And my sinuses were super clear, which is always an indication for me that my gallbladder is doing really well. So what I was thinking at that time was, from all of the things I've been doing for my gallbladder, I've been doing these high natural fats, which are like emulsifiers and break down stones. I've been doing on a regular basis pineapple, sometimes mixed with coconut cream, sometimes mixed with a little bit of apple cider vinegar and lemon, which is an endogenous recipe for clearing the gallbladder and of stones and breaking down stones. And I've been doing a lot of other things. Mustard was a big one. So I've noticed that every time I ate mustard, and the rye bread has also helped, the whole rye bread, a lot. So I've noticed that I've been getting clearer and clearer in the sinuses, and that all these things have been helping over the last, 2 months maybe. So I was thinking, when this was happening the next morning, I was thinking that I passed some gallstones, and they, for a short period of time, got stuck in the bile duct. So after your gallbladder sits behind the liver and collects bile, so that when you eat a bunch of stuff that needs that bile to help digest it, it stimulates the gallbladder to release into the top of the intestine. Well, there's ducts that are, of course, smaller than the gallbladder. So if a stone starts passing into the duct because it got broken up by what you were eating properly to break it up, it can be a problem. So I got up in the morning and I had a pretty big glass of water. And it wasn't long after that, I don't know, maybe within an hour, this all started happening again, the same exact way. And I went through the same motions. I couldn't get myself to be comfortable. I was just in pain in my gallbladder, and nothing would help. And it culminated again in throwing up. But this time, after I threw up all the water that I had drank, I threw up what tasted exactly like lemon and lime. And then I remembered I had had that big thing of lemon and lime. And I was still praying, Jesus, heal me, Jesus, help me. And I kept praying that, and I believe this has been one of my understandings that I've come to, is that having faith that you will be healed, part of it is asking and asking and asking. There's the knocking on the door and it will be answered. It's part of the faith, and some people might think, and I used to think, ask once and then believe, but I believe now that asking and engaging is part of getting the help, because it shows that you have faith. Because at that point in time, the second time, the next morning when I was going through the same exact thing, I was thinking, I might have to go to the hospital. And I know what they do for gallbladder attacks. They give you drugs that I don't want. They're gonna probably inject me with something, and I don't like any of that, and put me on IV, and they're probably going to remove the gallbladder, which is what their standard procedure is if they find anything blocking the ducts or the gallbladder. And they may even do a surgery to get a scope in there to free a stone from the gallbladder and the duct. So I didn't want any of that. So as I'm going through all this, after I'm asking and asking and asking, Spirit tells me to use Epsom salts. And so I did that immediately. Took about a teaspoon of Epsom salts, which is magnesium sulfate, and put it in a pint of water, and started sipping that. And immediately, 5 to 10 minutes in, everything calmed down. What it does is the magnesium calms down and relaxes all the biliary ducts in the liver and the gallbladder. And this reminded me of this Hulda Clark liver gallbladder cleanse that I used to do. In fact, I have a lot of experience with that. And you can look that up. I don't recommend it, and the reason I don't recommend it is because it interferes with a whole 2 days of your life. It's extreme, it's an extreme measure, and I don't really believe in doing extreme things anymore. I'd rather do something that takes place over time. But I was super awesome grateful to God for reminding me of this, and for telling me about the Epsom salts, because I was in no state to really think, and it wasn't me thinking about this. It was right from the Spirit of God. I heard that voice, and I knew what to do. And within 5 or 10 minutes, I was all calmed down, and I haven't had any trouble since. Later that day, I finished that glass of Epsom salts. Later that day, I ate a little bit more, and then I had a regular meal at that dinner time. And after that, I started feeling a little bit of pain in my gallbladder. So mid-evening, I had probably another half a glass of Epsom salts and water, just so that I didn't run the risk of having the same problem all over again. Then the next day, I ate normally, and the next day, ever since then, I've eaten normally and had no serious pain, just pressure sometimes in my gallbladder. I've also had a lot of times since then where my sinuses were really, really clear, and I've had a lot less pressure in the gallbladder area. So I am fairly certain that I passed some stones that were giving me problems for a long time, and that I continue to pass stones by what I'm doing with the routines I'm doing with the pineapple, and the pineapple combined with the coconut fat and apple cider vinegar and lemon, and also the mustard, and now I've added horseradish into the mix, which also stimulates the gallbladder and helps to dissolve things like sludge and stones, and also the high fat. I've also been eating egg yolk only instead of the whole egg. I changed that up probably as of this incident, and I feel like that has been much better for the gallbladder and helped, and that the egg white was irritating my gallbladder, which I suspected all along. People will tell you that egg whites can be irritating and cause inflammation in the body. So that's been a change. And so that brings up another point, which is that as I was asking for help, another thing that the Spirit told me was to go, after I calmed down and was off the couch and felt like doing something and everything was pretty fine again, I had been told to go search for mustard and the gallbladder, because the mustard was really doing me a lot of good, and I felt like my sinuses cleared up after eating it a lot of times. Even when I was doing the mustard baths, I would sprinkle the powder into the bath and get some into my sinuses, and I felt like it cleared up my sinuses and also relaxed the body. And I think part of that might be that it's going into the gallbladder and healing the sludge out of there and breaking up things that these things always have been related for me and many others with other pain and pressure in the body. I've had this whole thing on my left side, from my fingers all the way down to my foot on the left side, and everywhere in between, that seems to radiate from the middle, like hip area, and be like a sciatica thing. And it's always worse when my gallbladder feels pressure and pain and I've eaten a lot of fats. So I was told to research mustard and the gallbladder, and I came across this article that I'm going to get into in the second half of this video after I refresh myself with it, because I want to stop and talk about things. But that article talked about natural fats and animal products being very good emulsifiers, and it talks about, I think the article is called something about mayonnaise, and the gallbladder, and how the French, I don't know if it's in that article or if I looked it up before, but the French would add mustard to the mayonnaise often. So that's how I think I got started with the butter, mayonnaise, mustard thing that I'm making, and still haven't perfected yet, but I'm going to make it again soon, and I will post a video on that, because I think it's very good. The raw pastured butter, no salt butter with egg yolk in it and mustard, and there's some other things like apple cider vinegar. I think this is all a really good liver, gallbladder cleansing thing. So I've been eating other things I've been eating is a lot of apples, especially green apples, but I'll do green and red. I've been eating a lot of oranges. I think the citrus is really good. So what the Spirit reminded me of and has given me as a fix that I'm super grateful for, and didn't end up in the hospital with my gallbladder out, because I want my gallbladder, because it's, lots of people have had problems after they get it out. And the reason, I think, is because you don't have that sac of bile that's ready to digest things when you eat them. So it takes you a lot longer to digest things. You have problems digesting big fatty meals with protein. So I have this fix now that isn't a problem. I know this whole thing was a really great thing that happened. First, it made me realize the importance of this to my healing, because it's impacting my life greatly with these pains in my body, with the sinus problem, with not being able to eat a lot of fats. I've brought my eating way down, which has lowered my weight, but I'm not too thin. I've been getting a lot hungrier recently too, since this all happened, which tells me that my digestion is working better and the gallbladder isn't as much of a problem. But I've been eating smaller meals, and sometimes only once a day instead of twice a day. And this is all tied in with this whole thing recently where I'm being released from, and Jesus is delivering me from and healing me from this whole gluttonous eating thing, and having to eat because the clock says it's time to eat, or eating way too much and filling the stomach to where you get food coma and don't feel like doing anything, when there's no reason to do that. There's always food available, and I have no problem fasting if there isn't. And so I'm being released from all that, which is wonderful. But this incident brought up how important it was and to focus on it. And so I have taken that cue, and the Spirit kind of told me to focus on this. So everything I've been doing since then has been really focusing on this to clear out the gallbladder more and more, and to eat small meals, and to run through this cleansing routine, which involves, like the Hulda Clark thing, that one involved eating no fat. You would only eat a no fat food regimen until noon one day, and then you would take Epsom salts at like 6 and 8 p.m. and then like 10 p.m. you would drink a big jar of olive oil and fresh pressed grapefruit juice. So there's the citrus and the fat. So this is what I had the day that I had the attack. I had a load of citrus and then the fat. And the fat makes the gallbladder stimulate, and the citrus breaks up the stones or whatever. And so the Epsom salts relaxes the biliary ducts and lets them expand more, and so all of these stones can push out. So now that I have this routine, and I don't want to do the one with the giant takes two. I mean, you're having diarrhea on the toilet with this Hulda Clark thing, and you can't go anywhere, and you feel terrible and foggy brained. And I don't want that extreme of a remedy. I think I did it like 30 times over the course of a couple of years. But that was at the time when I was still go back to eating junk foods and vegetable oils, which I think my theory is that they cause a lot of the sludge and stones, which are made of cholesterol in the gallbladder. And so do plants and oxalates, I think. Also, I think it has to do a lot with a bacterial imbalance, or what doctors would call an infection, but I think it would be just the wrong type of bacteria. Because if you think about it, if you have the wrong bacteria in your gut, you probably have the wrong bacteria everywhere else, like your liver. Bacteria is everywhere. So I've noticed that one thing that I've also been doing is a lot of high meat, a lot of older meat that's getting on, stinky meat, a lot more bacteria in my food. So I think that has been challenging and replacing the bacteria that has been set up in my gallbladder and my liver. And I think when I ate that really stinky fish, it hit it all at once also with all of this bacteria that was in opposition to the network that was set up there from eating the wrong type of foods for so long. Specifically this summer, when I went back to eating junk foods and had more chocolate, had more processed foods, oils, and things like that. So now that I have this routine, I think I'm going to continue. I'm very grateful for this. It was awesome that this happened. Now I'm going to continue with more mustard, more horseradish, continue with the whole rye because that's helping a lot. It helps with the gallbladder for some reason, and it also helps with transition times so that things aren't backed up in the system, and that always helps my gallbladder. I'm going to continue with the citrus. I have oranges, I have lemon and lime, so I'm going to continue with that. Continue with some apple cider vinegar and the pineapple combination with the coconut cream, the raw coconut cream. And this has all been working. I'm going to continue to keep going with it. And if I have any pain, serious pain or serious pressure even in the gallbladder, I'm going to have some Epsom salts and water to relax it and help pass those stones. So I'm really grateful that I've gotten this routine and wanted to report back all that. And so that's all I wanted to say right now from memory. Now I'm going to go to part 2 where I review this article that I read. I'm going to bring the article up on the screen at points and talk through it. So when I was told to search for mustard and gallbladder, one of the articles I came to, and I'll post this link, was from the site wardroundstuff.com, tag mustard. So the article is gallstones and mayonnaise, and I plopped it into Word. I'll switch to that because I wanted to highlight some things. So it tells the story of a few weeks ago. We admitted Sylvia. She had been feeling unwell for some days with fever and episodes of uncontrollable shaking. What really alarmed her was she turned yellow, abdominal pain, vomited. She's 48. She was healthy, and then she was getting pains in her abdomen after eating fatty foods such as fish and chips. Now avoided foods like that. It was her son who noticed she was yellow, so she turned yellow and feverish and needed to go to the hospital. So of course the first thing I did was I went upstairs and I looked at my skin. It was fine, and my eyes, in the eyes it will turn yellow. So all that was fine, so I knew I was pretty good condition. And then talks about jaundice, that's what that is. An ultrasound showed that Sylvia had a gallbladder full of gallstones and her common bile duct was dilated. It seemed likely that she had a stone blocking the flow of bile from liver to the duodenum, and that the stagnant bile had become infected with bacteria causing ascending cholangitis and liver inflammation. So I think that's one indication about the bacteria thing that I was talking about. So here we have the liver, and the gallbladder sits off of that, and then you have this common bile duct that once the gallbladder gets stimulated by eating the right things, it pumps out into the top of the small intestine through the common bile duct, right? Okay. So a bunch of good information here. If you have any gallbladder or liver issues, this is all good to know. It's very technical, written by a doctor, so a lot of it is a little bit over my head and not really necessary, I don't think. But it gets into why the yellow turning of the skin and all that, and it's because of bilirubins. And I know I've had friends who had a high bilirubin count before and talked about that. So I'm going to skip through a lot of this. You can read it on your own. and come to this point. So her poo had changed color. The whites of her eyes and skin had become yellow because of the very high bilirubin. Now to the gallstones. In Western countries, they are most commonly made of cholesterol. I've already talked about the importance of cholesterol in keeping cell membranes rigid and non-leaky. Cholesterol is made in large amounts by the liver and transported to other cells, gift-wrapped as LDL cholesterol. It is also used to make bile salts. So if you're not eating enough good cholesterol, you're not going to have enough good bile salts made properly. It only needs a minor modification to the basic chemical structure of cholesterol to make bile salts, the main component in bile which makes it work. The main function of bile salts is to help us digest dietary fat. Bile salts are detergents. Just like washing up liquid, they emulsify fats. What does that mean? Breaking large fat globules into smaller micelles which do not stick to each other or anything else. There's lots of detail into all of that. So why do gallstones form? As well as bile salts, unmodified cholesterol is also secreted into bile. It is only kept soluble by the bile salts and phospholipid, the ratio of cholesterol to bile salts, that balance that he was talking about, or he or she was talking about earlier, and is therefore important. When it goes wrong, that balance, cholesterol precipitates out and forms solid stones like those that caused all Sylvia's recent problems. A bit like when you try to make mayonnaise and it curdles and the fat becomes unemulsified and separates out. So this balance is so important, and I think the foods that I've been eating have been going the other way to balance this out and to get back to where more detergent is formed and less solid stones are formed, and therefore things can clear out. Now, you have to eat differently to get this done. So most people don't eat differently, and that's why the solution in the hospital, which I am so grateful for, it is a miracle. Thank you, Jesus, that He showed me what to do and I didn't end up in the hospital, potentially getting my gallbladder taken out. And that I'm being told what to eat to make this go away eventually. We will see. Maybe the liver is producing this antibacterial enzyme to prevent infection when the flow of bile slows down. So there was a lot there that I skipped by. I don't really understand it all, but I'm hearing this thing about bacteria again. So there's my bacteria theory about the wrong bacteria being in there and it being rebalanced, which would help with that balance of the cholesterol and the salt bile making. Soon after she came in, Sylvia had a scope, and the scope removed the impacted gallstone from her ampulla of Vader, and she quickly recovered. A week later, she had her gallbladder removed because we know she's not going to stop eating the fish and chips that's probably fried in the vegetable oil that is causing this whole imbalance, probably, I would guess. That's my uneducated guess. Now to the food link, mayonnaise. French mayonnaise made with olive oil and mustard. This is an emulsion of lipids such as olive oil. I'm choosing to use raw, unsalted, pastured butter instead. I hope that's okay. I think that's good. It's a fat. It's an oil, sort of. in a watery medium, vinegar or lemon juice. So I'm going to add vinegar and lemon juice to my butter mayo. The emulsifying agent is raw egg yolk, which, just like bile, contains lots of phospholipid and this other thing, and is also rich in cholesterol. In France, mustard is also added. So people traditionally knew what to do to heal themselves because it worked, not because of all the science in this article and what science we have today. But traditionally people knew what to eat, and they craved these things, and they knew what worked together to balance things out. So that's what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing, let's read the rest of this. Mustard seed contains mucilage, a gooey stuff that some plants produce made of sugar polymers. These also act as emulsifiers and further thicken the mayonnaise to give it a better taste. When I make cheese sauce, I use flour to achieve a stable emulsion between the butter and the milk. No doubt in the milk, also in the milk, there's also this phospholipid. So I've been eating milk or things made from milk, like the cheese from the milk, on a regular basis also. So this whole combination seems to be what he's talking about in this article. Let's see, it seems likely that in the small intestine, the mucus from the stomach, a similar gloopy sugar polymer probably has a similar effect to mustard seed mucilage to help with fat emulsification. And that's the end of the article. So there's the mayonnaise. I'm going to continue with what I've learned. I'm really grateful. I hope you've learned something, and I'm not telling you what to do again, but you may want to check these things out for yourself, make a decision for yourself, and let me know if what your thoughts are, or whether you've had more experience with gallbladder issues and what has helped you. And I'll continue to keep you updated as the months go by. And if I have any other breakthroughs or any other thoughts, thank you very much. Have a great day.